Hello and welcome to the Gaz Williams Show. And yes, tonight, quite a clickbaity title, I suppose, and using the picture of the latest version of the Elektron Rytm MK2 in black on the thumbnail for this video is a bit naughty because I don't have the black one. I have the grey one, in the original colour. But other than the colour, it's exactly the same. Let's have a look at this thing. This is a drum machine, which I think is actually quite a remarkable thing, and could quite possibly deserve the accolade of the greatest drum machine of all time. How about that? Yes, that is quite a statement to make. Now, to justify that, I don't know that it is, to be honest. I was trying to work this out earlier, somewhere in the region of about 12 drum machines in my life, so not a huge amount. But this just smokes all the drum machines that I've ever used. And I think the case for it being the best drum machine ever, well, I've got 10 points now. I've written them down to help me remember. But those 10 points are all debatable, and I'm hoping to be able to have some debate in the chat room there. So hello, everybody who is tuning in live. That's really cool. I mean, this is all nonsense, ultimately. It doesn't... Who knows? And my opinion is worth whatever it's worth. Nothing, not really. You know, everyone's opinion is the same. Everyone's opinion is worth the same. I just think that this particular thing, probably the thing that is kind of the most negative thing, that just to get it straight out of the way, is that it is an expensive device. There's no two ways about it. You know, this is a professional piece of equipment. It's around £1,500. Check out the prices for yourself. But the price, you know, it is an expensive piece of kit. But I would argue that it is a very high quality piece of kit, and possibly the best drum machine ever made. Now, I'm going to start with reason number one, and that is actually about the build quality. And I mean, this thing is, it is absolutely solid. It's a completely metal construction, and it feels absolutely solid, you know, but it's kind of not too heavy, and it has got these nice recessed... Carrying it is nice, you know, it does feel confident in the hands, you know, you can grip it well, and it's not too heavy. So build quality is a massive issue, because some of its contenders would really fall down in the build quality area. So I know there's going to be some arguments going on, but build quality. So we're starting with build quality. Yeah. And this one scores highly. Now, oh gosh, I think that looks like that's strobing in that view. Let's look here. Oh, it looks a bit better. Let's pull it down. Yeah. So 12 pads. The pads, they are okay. I think they're good. I don't think they're the best. In my opinion, Machine Mark III, Native Instruments, kind of still has it, although Novation's last, you know, its most updated range of the launch pads, Launchpad X kind of family, those are great pads too. These pads, they're okay. They're functional, you know. But so I'm just going to talk a little bit about build quality, but we will be going into sound quite a lot as well. I was just checking, because we are streaming live, I'm just checking everything is good. And there's a nice chat room there. Thank you everyone for joining in. It really, really does help. Okay, right. Yes, so I'm talking build quality. The encoders, I think, are excellent. You know, I really do. I mean, I've got an analog 4 Mark 1. There is a version of the Mark 1 in this form too, in the drum machine, in the Rytm. And these have improved. I like them. I feel they're confident. You can press them down and just jump, you know, really fast through the parameters. Or you can you can do it. Really precise. I like them. I think that is probably a matter of personal taste, as is the screen. Now, in the first generation, the Mark 1s of the Rytm and the Analog 4, they had a very similar screen, but it wasn't so OLED. It was more inverted, and I don't know. This is a big improvement. If you haven't experienced one of these physically, when you look around, the screen stays in focus, sharp at any angle, And last week I was looking again at the Roland MC707, and that does suffer from different angles. It really does. Thank you for the comments again. But someone had suggested about playing around with the contrast, which I have done. I have done quite a lot, but it's weird. The whole kind of evolution of screens on devices, that Roland does feel like it is a bit of a backward step. Elektron, though, they've kind of focused on these small screens, and it's okay. It is actually okay. It is a quirk of Elektron, but once you get more used to an Elektron workflow, the screen, it just does what it needs to do, which is not too much. You're not fixated looking at the screen. It really doesn't need you to be looking at it. It's just merely there when you need it. And I think that's one thing that maybe separates it from screens which are a bit more kind of flashy. Yes. I am an Elektron fan. I have to just say that first and foremost. And Elektron products, for me, connect with a certain questing mind of my own. And when I have ideas and I think, what about doing this? What about doing that? I find Elektron devices very accommodating of ideas. Roland and the other manufacturers have maybe been trying to kind of keep you down certain musical avenues with some of the limitations and restrictions that the Elektron stuff seems to let you go way beyond. And I think Elektron have done that for such a long time. Their sequencer has become... You could almost argue that the Elektron sequencer has now become the industry standard sequencer in some respects, of a step sequencer, the approach to it. The Roland MC707, again, that I was talking about last week and the week before, I really think that's taken many ideas from Elektron. So I think, kudos to Elektron for pioneering a particular way of working. Anyway, I digress. So I'm still on number 1. Oh my goodness. We got to get through 10 of these. So I'm talking about build quality, and I think that the build quality on this is fabulous and hasn't let me down so far. And it just inspires confidence, So that's number 1. Number 2 is the oodles of connectivity. And I mean, really, you'd have to be a real kind of incredible specialist to need more than what this can offer, because you've got individual outputs. Well, you've got 8 individual outputs. And I should mention that this is really the Analog Rytm, even though it has the 12 pads, it really is an 8 voice machine. The pads that have got a little, I wonder if we can see this on here. Yeah, the little lines here and here, here and here. These are choke groups, so only one of these voices can ever play at any one point in time. And, someone would say, that's points against it. Yeah, possibly. However, choke groups, very good. And it's generally good to not have too much stuff going on at one point in time. So being really focused about what you're doing, I think, is a really important aspect to getting stuff done. Getting stuff done. Now that's a chapter in itself, that's something that, getting, playing with the gear and getting stuff done there. I'm kind of being a bit silly there, but really there is a point to that in that something like this, the argument would be, why do you need a drum machine when a computer is essentially the ultimate drum machine, which it kind of is in terms of if you want to get into the statistics of stuff. So there has to be another element, something that is either is inspiring or takes you places that a computer workflow would never do. And I think that really would be the crux of the issue, or what makes something really good. And I think that part of my sort of fandom of Elektron stuff is they are like kind of ninja devices. And, if you ever see Cenk from Elektron perform, he is the ultimate ninja. And what I mean by that is being able to sort of just do a lot of things incredibly quickly by being very au fait with the shortcuts and the ways that you can do stuff and the navigational aspects and, the real-time operation of it. These things are hard to beat in a way, because there is a lot of influence in Elektron from gaming culture. So I think sort of learning key commands and, well, I know that Cenk is a Street Fighter 2 like demon. And sadly, here's a tale that has never been told. At Synth Reactor last year, I took a little Super Nintendo, well, the mini, the reissue, to Synth Reactor with the express intention of having a Street Fighter 2 tournament with the different people there. Sadly, we were just too busy and we didn't get time. But Cenk said, yes. And, Cenk would have kicked my ass. He probably would have, he would have decimated me. But I was really interested to hear that Cenk was like a Street Fighter 2 sort of like demon, all the key commands and, not key commands, all the controls and the mixture of, takes a certain mindset. And maybe that mindset is the thing that puts certain people off Elektron as well, because it is quite a cerebral thing. The display is kind of almost, it's quite blank and in many ways almost bland. And, the controls are sort of the way they're labeled and, well, on that camera it's a bit blown out, but, it's just a single A, B, C. You need to have a lot of what's going on in there kind of going on in here as well. And that would definitely be points against it from some people's perspectives. But I'd like to dispel a myth, actually, that Elektron devices are hard to use. I think that you can power this on. In fact, let me do that. Let me absolutely do that. Right. I'm going to create as though I'm just going to go to a place with no patterns and I've just load in a default kit, right? I'm just going to go in and I'm just realizing I should have done something earlier. Right, okay, so I got a default kit loaded, blank, start. People would already say, what was all that nonsense about? What was you just doing there? That was a bit of Elektron nonsense. What I was doing there was what I should have done before. If I was doing this as a blank project, but there's other stuff loaded in this project that I want to refer back to. But yeah, so this essentially would be a default kit. Is that coming now nice and loud? Let's just check the levels there. Yeah, I realise how much of my mic is... Okay. That's your default kit, and it's as simple as that, You go into step record mode. I want to choose my bass drum. 4 on the floor. And it's as easy as that. Pick your kind of hi-hats. You're up and running. That's as easy and as instinctive as any drum machine, really. I think the thing about Elektron stuff, though, which earns its reputation, though, is that it can do so many things. So I think people feel a little bit intimidated by them. I definitely can relate to that because I do at times. You know, I think, ooh. However, when you do start playing around with them, it's like, oh, they do reward digging in deep. Can we hear the cowbell through the Terra Nova? Oh, interesting idea. Yes, I'd have to set things up. Sorry, referring to the chat room there. Thank you, by the way, everybody, for joining in, and it's great to see a nice load of you there. Okay, so I'm going through these 10 reasons. So I'm talking about number 1 was build quality. Number 2 was oodles of connectivity. So yes, you know, we've got at the back here individual outputs, but we've also got like stereo inputs, and we've got 2 sets of stereo inputs. And that's one thing that's a little bit odd about this, is that you've got an external audio input and you've also got an audio in. And the audio in is for sampling, because this is a sampling drum machine. But the external in is more of a, if you want to run another device alongside it, maybe the analog 4 is a nice kind of partner or whatever, take its outputs and then into the external in, and then that gets routed out to the outputs, but it also goes through the master compressor, which I've got in as number 6 in my list, but we will come back to that. So yeah, but the confusing thing is, if you did have something plugged into the external input, and then you go, oh, do you know what? I just want to sample that. Bang, I'm ready to sample. Oh, why is it not there? Because you need to move your audio inputs manually from there and then into the audio in. That's the sampling input. This isn't a biggie. It's just a thing. But, I mean, it's cool that there is all these jacks, though, because actually having the external input is something that the other devices in the range, the analog 4 and, well, certainly the Octatrack as well, they have more general connectivity than the normal piece of kit that you find. Although, top marks to Roland on the MC707, lots of connectivity. But I mentioned 707, and this is an important thing. I was going to start the whole shebang tonight by talking about this. I am referring the Elektron Rytm as being the best drum machine, and that is a drum machine, not a groove box. And there is a blurry line about what is a drum machine and what is a groove box, and I think that that's quite an important one to bear in mind in this particular presentation that I'm doing right now, because a groove box, you can build up whole things on there, which you could essentially do on this. This definitely tiptoes into the realm of groove box, but it backs out again quite quickly when you realize it's not a groove box, it's a drum machine. And this is not for loading in loops and manipulating loops and time stretching sort of loops and anything like that. No, this, if you think about the sampling in this device, it is mostly one-shot type it's mostly drum machine hit type sampling. You can do quite a bit of stuff with it, with the sampler. Ooh, you could do loads with it, really, but it does become limited in a way if you then get excited about that realm. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a reasonable amount of storage space in here. There is 1 gig of storage, which, when that is about impacts and hits and sort of rises or all, that is a lot that you can store on there. But if you start bringing in loads of drum loops and you start eating into that, this is why the definition of a groove box and a drum machine, I think, is quite an important thing, really, because this is set up to be a drum machine, with a lot of flexibility in that area. Okay, so, but I'm talking about connectivity. That was number 2. Yes, number 3. Haha. And this is going to be one that a lot of drum machines are going to struggle to compete, although the MC707 certainly has had a go. the MC707 Groove box you should have. But that is USB class compliant. Yes, the version 1.6 has just come out for the Elektron analog range, makes this a class compliant USB audio interface, and that is absolutely amazing, because it just means, certainly from a sampling point of view, that USB port then, connect it to a phone, connect it to an iPad, and you can be sampling from there. You can be just using this solid, nice build with all the, these balanced jacks out there for connecting to your phone and getting a really good quality version of your audio from your mobile device. Yeah, converters are great in Elektron stuff. Now, the MC707 Roland, which I do keep mentioning because that is something I've been covering recently, also, I think there was a few days apart, which is bizarre. Both got gifted USB audio class compliance. Now, I was quite surprised when I saw that Roland did that, because Roland have been so proprietary regarding USB drivers and have been for many, many years. And Roland stuff has always needed special drivers, and that's meant that all these really cool devices that Roland has made, you've not been able to connect it to your iPads and iPhones and things of that ilk. It's required proprietary drivers. So for Roland to go class compliant, that's fantastic. Now, where things get different is the implementation of the class compliance, because that's been handled very, very differently, really. When, if you connect the Roland MC707 to your computer, then with its drivers, you get access to, oh my goodness, is it like something like 20 inputs coming from the device over USB, which is fantastic. However, if you use the class compliant driver, it just gives you a single 2 in, 2 out. Now that's super useful, and most people, that will do what you need it to do. But the Elektron one, however, with the class compliant USB audio interface aspect of it, you get access to all of the voices over USB, which is fantastic. On top of that, if we just go into the menu here, let's see if we can actually see this. Yes, I think that's legible. I'm going to go into the settings here. Can I get that a little bit more in focus? Yes. Yeah, so let's just go into there then. Now, USB config, you get the new option, USB audio MIDI. Now, I should also add into this, which is my 10 reasons. I'm at number 3 at the moment. I'm going to connect Overbridge into number 3. Now, Overbridge is an absolutely amazing thing. Overbridge really should be should be a number of its own. For such is the strength of the argument for this. I'm going to even connect Overbridge into this. Overbridge, if you don't know what that is, that's fantastic. That means you can run it as a plug-in in your software and have this drum machine connected to your computer via USB, not using any audio outputs, using your regular audio interface. You're not having to change the audio interface to become this. You run it as Overbridge, you run a plug-in. This lives inside your software. If you're going to have to do a mix down, you're going to have to do it in real time, because this is an analog device essentially, but it does the whole round trip. I'm sure many of you knows what Overbridge is anyway. However, but in the kind of is this the best drum machine ever? You have to consider that is a kind of pretty strong contender. But combine it now with the class compliant audio interface aspect, and it's like, ooh, that's kind of hot. Class compliance, great, isn't it? Because if a company makes a product and then that company goes out of business, that product will always work because of class compliancy. Well, it will always work in that connectivity sense, that new drivers, it won't require new drivers. It's more up to the standard of products that support class compliancy. I don't think that made any sense. I apologise. I think you know what I'm talking about. However, we're still on number 3 and we've got a lot to get through. Right. So I'm going to move on to number 4 then. So number 3, as you can see, is a pretty big one, really. Number 4. Now that's the sound engines that's kind of that exist inside this thing, and it is a sampler and an analog synth. And I think it's easy to forget that, yeah, it is a proper analog synth. So you've got 8 analog synths basically in here. And the fact that you can layer an analog synth with a sample in the same voice, you know, is pretty cool. And I know that the Tempest, you know, that's not a ultra unique feature. I think it's Tempest. I've never actually used the Tempest, so if anyone wants to throw the Tempest in the ring against this one, you know, that would be interesting. But anyway, the fact that you've got an analog synth and a digital sampler per voice makes it really, really cool, because they both can bring so much to the party, you know. You could definitely get the party pumping with this thing, you know. So, apologies for that. Break. Do you know what? I think it's time for some things. I'll just go through some of the patterns that are in here. Yes, disclaimer, these are the ones. These are preset patterns. What number am I on? I'm on number 4. Yes, the sound engine. Oh my goodness, the sound engine. This is a big number. There's a lot to this. So as I say, each thing... Okay, let's just... let me do this, I reckon. Okay, so... in my, well, these row of buttons along the front here, these ones here, the front of these, they are your navigation buttons for the synth, the sound engine. Okay, starting from trig, which is basically governing how the notes are being processed, followed by both of the source, the analog engine and the sample engine. And in this trigger, for instance, you can decide, oh, that's nasty strobe, isn't it? Let's go here. You can turn on whether it's the synth engine and the sample engine. There we go. See both off there. Turn them both back on. And yeah, so that's like your top level, I suppose. Then you can go into what the analog engine is doing, or what the sample engine's doing, and then they both flow through the analog filter. And then we've got analog overdrive as well, and we have got an LFO available as well, and that's per kind of voice, which is pretty nifty. I mean, it's huge. In the amp settings, you've got a delay send and a reverb send. So you've got a global delay and reverb, which still sound pretty good. I mean, they're not going to be... Well, actually, we'll listen to some and we'll make our mind up. But I do think they do sound nice. There's not an enormous amount you can do with the reverb, but it is a nice... What they've done does sound really nice. Okay, so I was still looking. I'm on number 4. Yes, so the analog and the synth engine. And let me think, what else did I say? Yes, so the filters, really cool. Let's play with the filter. Okay. Let's choose the right drum track while I change it. So got high pass on here. Make that. Let's go low pass on there now. Well, you get the drift, you know. But you've got lots of filter types. It's got a rubberiness to it, you know. It's nice. It doesn't feel brittle, or it feels kind of like you're dealing with analog. It's nice. We've got quite a few different filters. Let's have a look then. So we've got two low pass filters. Low pass one. So I think it's steeper, is it? Well, you get the drift anyway. But analog filters. These are analog filters. That's the thing. That's what you've got to kind of remember when you're comparing this with things. There is a lot of analog goodness going on. Yes, indeed. Because I think filtering, overdrive, look, this. Let's play with the filter, sorry. Take the resonance down. You know, it's kind of good. It's kind of gnarly. It's nasty. It's great. These are proper filters. It's cool. So, yes. Number 4. Yeah. So, there's loads of cool things to do with the sound engine, including, not in this update, but the previous update, introduced this randomized page idea. Now, I think that is amazing. So we are in our default. We're in our default drum kit, with the exception that I've kind of messed around with our drum, with our kick drum here. Yeah. All right. So, let me think. Where was that? Yeah. What did I do? Yeah, randomized page. Okay, we'll do it with the snare drum. Okay, so this is quite cool. The MC707 last week, I was showing that could that had algorithms, randomizing algorithms that could generate new synth patches based on poly, mono, various other aspects, and then subsequent regeneration should be just creating brand new instruments each time, and the sheer amount of possible parameter variations means that every single sound, every single time you do that, that sound is yours. That sound is very unique. There is just too many variables. So that's kind of cool, you know, when you feel overwhelmed with kind of presets. Now, the way this carries out its randomization is a little bit different. It does it on a per page basis, where each of the pages on here, okay, if I go to this one here, yeah, each of the pages here, we got like, you know, like our filter page. So it will just randomize the filter settings. So let's try that then. So go, and you basically hold down the, oh, I think I need to do it from this angle. You hold down whatever the page number is, and then you hit yes, and then look at that. I mean, that's only sub. You need to have serious sub going on to hear that. Ooh, ouch. In fact, I just had an idea, and that lends us onto one of the later numbers as well. But you can hear that that just randomizing the filter just creates unbelievable amounts of variations, and I think it's kind of cool when a page needs a certain amount of manipulations to kind of adjust the sound, to be able to snap them all in an instant, that's physically impossible. So it really kind of justifies the inclusion of it. I think that's a really neat thing. And as I say, it will randomize each page. So let's keep doing it then. So, okay, that's where we've ended up. And that's pretty nifty, isn't it? I mean, it's a bit pitched high, but that could be quite nice. That could be quite a nice... No, I've dropped out of the frequency range. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, that's how it is. Let's randomize a different page then. I'm going to randomize the source page. And I wanted to talk about these sources as well, because I think this is another very cool feature. Right, come on in. So I'm going to go change the source. Let's do that again. It's got a nice motion to that. Oh, I can't bring myself to change that, so I'm going to leave that for now. And then on the amp page, let's see what happens with the amp. So changing the amp envelope. Of course, this opens it up to the effects because they're on that page, so effect settings are being randomized. Oh. It's a pretty cool feature. You have to admit. I think why that is a very cool feature is because of the analog stuff that goes on. So when parameters are being pushed and things are kind of drived a bit heavily, get a bit of burn, a bit of an analog burn going on. I'm going to make a really evil drum kit here. Just checking in with the chat room for one moment. Yeah, nice to see you all in there. Fantastic. Right, I'm going to move through my list. So I'm still on. So I'm going through 10 reasons why the Elektron Rytm MK2 could be the best drum machine ever made. Just a quick recap for those of you who are just joining now. I was saying number 1 is build quality, because it is really super build quality on this. Number 2 is how much connectivity is going on. Every single output you've got 8 outputs you can tap off there, and audio inputs, MIDI in, out, and through. And these can be toggled to be in DIN sync as well. So you can send out DIN sync to synchronize DIN sync 24, DIN sync 48. So you can sequence it to old Roland and Korg gear and other stuff. Also, didn't mention this in the control ins, but yes, in the, what number was this? Number 2, gone back to number 2. Yeah, there is, two control inputs there, so you can send CV inputs into it. I can't remember if there's a way to make any of these outputs send CV signals out. I don't think so. Maybe someone out there could. Is there any CV output or gate capability? I'm sure there is. I'm just. I think you can send something out. Anyway, I've forgotten that. But yeah, with the USB, obviously, all sorts of goodness can happen in terms of connectivity, especially with number 3, which is the class compliant audio interface. And really cannot underestimate that. Oh gosh, I moved on. I'm so scatty. In the class compliant audio interface settings, let me just do that, because I think it is a worthy thing. It is a worthy thing. You get this audio routing window. And when you come in this audio routing window here, you can choose a whole bunch of how your general audio is routed, or USB in is coming pre-effects. We can change things. We can change that it's coming pre-effect, post-effect, into channel 1, sampler, just into the sampler only. This is kind of cool. This means you can use the USB however you can possibly think to use it. USB out can be main out, audio in. So, well, what this basically means is you can use it with your software. So the drum machine part of it is either pre or post where the software is. Why is that important? Well, if you are using it as the audio interface and you're running all your other tracks through it, well, there we go. You run tracks through it. You can run your USB audio tracks through the analog engine and the filters and the distortion and add the effects and all the LFOs and the modulations. Or you can move it so it's at the beginning of the chain. So when you press record in your DAW, you're recording all the outputs of the rhythm as track inserts. So the fact that you can just decide where the USB part happens in the signal processing is super cool. And kudos to them. It's a little bit confusing. I'm definitely getting confused about some of the options. And I do need to look into it more. But it is really cool that they're doing this, because it really does mean that, especially being class compliant, it really future-proofs these things. Because there is another really cool aspect in the latest update. They have made significantly better ways of sample management and preset management. Now, I haven't looked at that yet, confession, but that I know is definitely welcome. So when you're connected via USB, I guess that 1 gig of samples, you can back it all up, move it all around. And if you really are a kind of sample demon, it's good news that the sample management has improved. However, that is not a reason, because that is just a detail. Now, I'm going to need to check in with the chat room in a moment, because I do want to, this is a contentious issue, really. What is one man or one person's favourite drum machine could quite well be somebody else's idea of nightmare, of hellish nightmare. And I can kind of get that with these things, because, as I mentioned earlier, it is a cerebral process. The lack of information on there means you do need to know it in your head. You need to know where things are and how to get at things. However, you can do the basics pretty easily. But when you want to go further, then that's when the kind of, I guess they call it down the rabbit hole kind of thing happens. And yeah, well, we'll get into that in a moment. So, yes, where am I? I am still on number 4, which is the sound engine. I've just did some randomizations. And talked about the sample space. There's a gig of sample space inside here. You could mark it down there on lack of SD card, because it does mean you have to connect it to a computer to get at the data. So yeah, but as drum machines go, that's a lot of sample data. I should mention though that the operational part of the drum machine can only, in its kind of immediate memory, I think is still around a 64 megabytes. So again, that's a lot of hits. It's not a lot of time when you are putting loops and things in. So it is a distinction that I think is an important one. If you're comparing that kind of feature set, then this is going to suffer, because, there's other reasons as well, but it isn't meant to be that device. The 707, yeah, but the rhythm, no. This is a drum machine, and yeah, you are expected to be using this with other things, I think. Yes, okay. I'm going through my notes now because, gosh, 10 reasons. Let's have a look. 80 meg. I think I was wrong about 64. 80 meg, I think. Right, thanks to Jim there. Right, let's move on. So, the sound engine is so massive. I mean, yeah, I know, yes, there is something. As I say, the sound engine's too massive to go into it in full detail, but I do know something that I could show you. And that is that something that's kind of interesting is that the synth engines that the different pads access are not all the same. There's some similarities, but some are unique. This bottom row, for instance, have which is a synth engine that can do kicks, it can do snares, it can do rim shots and claps. You can switch that out for. Well, I'll go to the rim shot, for instance. Here, let's just go to this one. Yeah, and if I go to the source, I can choose. Oops, sorry, I'm on the wrong track. Yeah, so we go to source here, rim shot, but I can go to. I've got some kicks, but interestingly, I've only got access to some kicks, and I've got access to some snares. I haven't got access to all of them. Some claps. Or maybe I have access to them. They're just over. Well, I don't know actually. No, there's definitely There's definitely other. Well, let's have a look. I'm going to the kick menu. So I'm going to my kick. Here's all the kicks. Oops, I'm going to keep out of that dual VCO for a moment. So you've each one of these, so sharp, silky, I really like that silky. Each one of these has got a different set of parameters available. So if we chose silky, for instance, we've got tuning, let's just go through these now. Sweep time, sweep depth, decay time, hold time, dust level, VCO click, and level. But if I was to change that engine to another one, there's a difference, some of the parameters are different. We can see that as I move through the list there, we can see some things change around. Now the reason why I'm mentioning that is because that each one of the drum pads has access to these different synth engines. If I was to choose one of the cymbals up here, for instance, in its default state, I can't even hear that. Let's go with that one. I don't know what's going on, why I can't hear that. But anyway, let's just change the. And then here, we can see that we've got different engines available to us. Classic. Why? I don't know. Have I muted this pad? No. I'm confused why that's not sounding. I'm going to go to this tom pad for now because it is behaving. See, people are going, nah, why is that not working? And I'm not actually sure. Is it panned? Anyway, okay, I'm going to go to tom for now. Same kind of thing. If I was to go into the tom engine, not so many things in the list here. BT Classic, which I guess is bottom tom, noise generator, impulse. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so everything has got access to these noise gen and impulse engines. Let's just go into the low tom, and it has got XT Classic. So they've only got certain engines associated to them. So you couldn't put an analog kick, for instance, on a tom track. Although if you could tune the toms down low enough, in fact, I think quite often you find good kicks out of. You can make lovely kicks out of the tom, actually. Anyway, but yeah, so those things, they're kind of quirks about it, you know. I guess analog circuitry being analog circuitry means that, you know, it's when it's analog circuitry, it's not. We take digital so for granted. You know, all the circuitry that has to accommodate all of the things, the sound engines and stuff. You know, yeah, it's. I guess it's complex stuff going on under the hood. Anyway, I'm going through my list. Right, so I was on the synth engine. Okay, yes, I'm going to move now to number 5. Blimey, number 5. And number 5 is really all about the sequencer. And the sequencer being the Elektron sequencer, I think is fair to say is the current standard. I think the Elektron sequencer, you know, you could argue that things like the Circlon are, you know, are the most, you know, powerful sequencer, maybe the Circlon, but in terms of what sets a standard, I think it's fair to say that Elektron do. The idea of parameter locking all comes from the Elektron world, really. I mean, there have been other things that have approximated similar processes, but the Elektron sequencer, I know most of you will be familiar with it, but if you're not familiar with the Elektron sequencer, why is it so good? Why is it so revered? Well, well, I have to say that things have come, other people have come on now, and their sequencers do so much more than they used to. So you have to bear in mind that the Elektron's sequencer legendary status, I suppose, comes from when the opposition really didn't do very much. However, it still holds its own, and reasons for that is that pretty much any sequencer trick going on, you can more or less do. There are a few that you can't, but not many. And what am I talking about sequencer tricks? Things like ratcheting, for instance, where a single step that you can make it trigger between that and the next step. So basically the space between beats, you can put multiple beats in. Things like that are quite easy to do. Let's get something playing. I just mute the snare for now. Let's take the song off. Okay, let's do it with a cowbell. Why not? Okay, single cowbell here. I hold that cowbell down, and then I can add retrigs on there, and I can choose how many I want. $64 now. Oh, here we go. Yeah, you know, it's ratcheting fairly standard on most drum machines now. However, I think this is the thing, is that what kind of things can you do to a sequence? Well, another thing that scores highly is being able to, I could have my different tracks. So my drum, my kick, if I go into this mode here, which it allows me to decouple this is a 4-bar pattern, so all of the tracks are running at 64 steps. But if I wanted to, I'll choose the kick. You know, if I go into advanced, I can make different tracks run at different lengths. So I could, you know, I can make the kick track just last for 4. Let's just jump out of here and then start it running. And if you see on the kick, oops, you know, so the kick is just running 4 steps, but the other patterns are running the whole length, you know. So you can do your polyrhythmic stuff, your polymetric stuff, all of that is like great. And it's hard to beat the sequencer in many respects, because there's so many things that you can do with it. For instance, these buttons, these 4 buttons along here, in conjunction with function, allow you to change the behavior of patterns. So if I was to go pattern 1 here, I'm just using presets here. Now, I'm going to say, I can say it's sequential. If it's set sequential, when I trigger the new pattern, it'll wait until the pattern is finished. This is a 4-bar pattern. And now, back to the change one. That's set to sequential. Direct start means I can just start it, the pattern instantly. So I can just keep re-triggering it. So that reggae one comes in on that upbeat. That's direct start. Then direct jump, which is everyone's favourite, is the one that lets you jump to the next pattern in the relative same bar position. So you can do drum fills. And then finally, you've got temporary jump, which is pretty cool because you can move to a different pattern and then, I think I've done that wrong, but it can jump back to where you were at. But anyway, yeah. But yeah, like in direct jump mode, these patterns are running at different tempos here, so, well, no, we're good. You know, as you're jumping around those patterns, radically different sounds going on. You're not losing tails, are you? Like reverb, nothing is being chopped. Things are kind of overlapping really beautifully. It's super fast, isn't it? Everything, there's just absolutely no artifacts when you're changing, you know. So I think the whole Elektron sequencer being part of the rhythm gives the rhythm a very strong sequencer component. And also, you see, sequencer, all well and good being able to do a single sequence of up to 64 steps or 4 bars. You can create chains. Now, here's a little gotcha, because this does catch you out. If you try to create a chain and you're not on sequential, you can't. So you just have to make sure that, you know, the way I was just jumping around, direct jump there, you'd have to just remember to go back to sequential if you want to work with chains. Which kind of makes sense, because a chain. So what a chain will let you do is, you know, if I wanted it to start with, say, pattern B5, I hold down pattern B5, and then I can go and I've just pumped in a load of numbers of different patterns. So chain is lit up, playing pattern 5, 4-bar pattern, to pattern 6. 4-bar patterns, these ones. But then, you know, so we've made a chain, yeah. Pattern 7 is playing. Now it's going to jump after pattern 7. We'll jump to pattern 9. You get the gist. You can, holding down things, create a chain of patterns. Turn chains off. But what you can then do is, and now this is where people kind of shudder, you know. You can create songs by sequencing chains together, you know. And once you actually get into it, it's actually really cool because you can do a bunch of interesting things. For instance, you can, every entrant into the sequencer can have a different set of like mute values, for instance. So a single pattern, which is, you know, it's got a kick, snare, hi-hats, whatever is going on, you can just mute and just maybe just have just a kick for that iteration, however many times you want that to play. So you can make a single pattern come in layers. So so rather than needing a separate pattern, basically, for to be able to do that. So that, I think, is really cool. But, you know, I don't imagine a lot of people program fully complex songs into this, but you absolutely can. And when I've dabbled with it, and I've never done a complete song inside of this as of yet, I do intend to, but I typically use this for building grooves and actually recording the output as a performance. And I'll come to that because the performance aspect of this is, again, one of the strong points. My goodness. But I'm going to move on because this is all still part of number 5, which is the Elektron sequencer. So as we've ascertained, you know, you can build chains, you can build songs, you can make your songs, you can have elements coming in and out of songs, and of course, the parameter locking means that's essentially automation across all of the parts. Okay, so what next? I'm going to move on. So the Elektron sequencer. Oh no, there was one more thing. I'm sorry, and that is when you're working with step sequencers. Most step sequencers will quantize and won't give you the option to record the part unquantized. The Elektron world, it does let you do that. And individual steps, if you hold down a step, go here, and you hold down a step and you hit this, and you can see micro timing. And so things can't be in absolute time, but they will be rounded to pretty small little divisions. But it means that each step you can record things in free time, but then you can go in and you can, you know, straighten things up or make things play back late on a per step basis. And again, that per step thing is another part of the Elektron sequencer, isn't it? I hold down a step, I set a parameter value, and then you can see the white boxes around the parameters that have just changed. And that means those parameters for that particular step are parameter locked to do that, you know, and that is the classic Elektron parameter locking thing that, that gives this, again, you know, a very strong, what am I saying? It's a contender to be the best drum machine of all time. Right. So yes, moving on. Number 5. That was number 5. No, it's not number 5. There is still more, of course, on the Elektron sequencer, and that is trig conditions. Something we're starting to see more and more on other devices too, but I think, again, Elektron have still got the advantage here. And what a trig condition is, again, like I was showing before, holding down a trigger and a trig. So trigs are basically buttons that are held down. I'm holding button. Each one of these, there's 16 tricks, Elektron terminology. I'm holding down a trig, and then I've got trig conditions here. And what trig conditions are like, I can say, obviously 100% of the time, every time this pattern plays, that'll play 100% of the time, only 25% of the time, whatever percentage that you want. Or you get into this kind of more like sequencery kind of realm, which is you can have it happening just once, then it'll play for 2 bars. It'll only play on the first of the 2 bars. It'll only play on the second of the 2 bars. It'll play once on 3, every out of 3 bars, etc. There's different kind of places where you can, make it only appear to, happen. Or other options for the trig conditions are, and this is where things get a little bit interesting. You can kind of set it to do, well, if you set it to fill, then there is a fill button. So it's that trig will only happen when you hold the fill button down. Or you can have like previous and neighbor, and these ones will mean that if the previous one sounds, then it will sound. I think that's right. And neighbor, oh yeah, there's both with there's a little tiny line above it. Yeah, so it'll be if the previous trig sounds, then it won't sound. Or if the previous trig sounds, then it will sound. And then similar, that's neighbor means that the track next to it, if that sounds, it will either play or won't play. Anyway, enough of this. Those trig conditions anyway allow for a single, maybe even 16 step pattern to have a ridiculous amount of iterations every single time it goes round. If every single beat has got a certain amount of trig conditions on there, then it'll mean that it will always be different. Now, as from this latest version in the 1.6, it also adds trig probability, and some people are confused about that. Well, I certainly was at first, because I was thinking, well, trig conditions have been in it for a long time. Now this is different, because this works on all of the steps, and it's I think we first saw it maybe in the Digitact, but this is like it's a lockable parameter as well. Probability, and it's just simply 0 to 100%. And you can kind of use this as a sort of mute control as well. So that kick that's kicking now around, I can just speed it to 0. Oh, the song is on. I'm sorry, the song is playing. And can't remember how to turn the song off. Oh, there we go. The song is off. There we go. Yeah. So the kick is set to 0%, so clearly doesn't play at all. So put that across. It's a quicker way, actually, of doing it than doing it on all of the steps. But it's the way that you can combine both approaches, which I think, again, gives this super strength. Yeah. Right. Let's have a look. So yeah, all of that is still number 5. So I'm going to move on to number 6 then, which I did mention earlier, and that is that there is an analog bus, like an analog compressor across the outputs of this, and it's a full featured compressor. Quite often with groove boxes and drum machines, compressors can be just on and they could be like a single knob affair. This is a full analog compressor. So how many drum machines have got that? I mean, that, you know, that is a cool feature. Let's get a pattern playing. Get some juice. Okay, so I jump into effects and I can go into the compressor. And then I've got, oops, you know, here's my makeup gain. Let's turn the mix up. Okay, let's turn the attack up. Bring the threshold down. Let's get a pump in. And you can sidechain. Ooh. But it gives us a mix control, so you can do parallel compression. I'm going to crank the distortion right up, the compressor right up. So when we bring the mix across, ooh, okay, yeah. So pretty awesome, isn't it? Having an analog compressor, but also you've got a distortion as well, so you can chuck the whole thing. I also want to do a better pattern than that. That's better. Sorry, the pattern was nasty. Right, here we go. This is quite nice. Oh, I've got a chain running. Hang on, let's go back. Where was I? There, I'm being a bit of an umpty there, but you know, when the chain is lit or song is lit, they are quite clearly lit. So changed the pattern by accident then. Okay, so I was looking at the compressor. And the distortion. So let's turn that distortion up a bit. Let's watch our levels here as I crank the amount. Full amount. Yeah, rack the compressor. And it's when you start playing around with this stuff, that's where the analogness of it really starts to show, because it's all juicy analog. Okay. So yeah, so that compressor is number 6. Well, compressor and distortion, and that's another distortion on top of the distortions that you've got on the voice, on the regular individual voice channels as well. So distortion there's plenty of distortion available in this box. Right, let's have a little look at number 7. This is cool. And this came in an update. This wasn't or rather, I think when the Rytm came out, the Mark 1, it wasn't in it. And then they introduced it. And what that is, they basically introduced an analog synth, a dual VCO synth engine, one that you can play pitched. So what I'll do here then is I'm going to create a pattern that is blank. That's not blank. That is blank. Okay. Now, the kit
the drum kit, that whole kind of infrastructure, if you're interested. Load kit. Now here's all the kits that are in the current firmware. But if we shoot up here and find a blank kit and choose it, this is what we loaded in before. As I say, was everything that's there are just running from the analog synth side of things. There's no samples preloaded. What am I doing? I am doing the synth, yeah. So in the kick channel, for instance, if I go into the source, I can choose from this list dual VCO. So I'm going to choose that. So now my kick is a synth. And then if I hit chromatic, then now the velocity feels really weird. It feels good for drums, but feels really lumpy for the synth. But I can just like put fix. I can hit the fix button there. Obviously, that fix button familiar to MPC users as the set levels, when you can set everything to a set level. Function of fix, we can set what that level actually is. Okay, but I've loaded that into so our kick now is being an analog synth, and I can do that as well on the next one, on the snare track. Oops, wrong place. Dual VCO 2, yep. And the next one as well, but bearing in mind 3 and 4 kind of only one can play at the same time. They kind of choke each other, but that can allow for some cool things. So let's set them both then to dual VCO. So I suppose essentially it's a 3-voice analog synth. No, well, each voice being made of 2 oscillators as well. Yeah, and pop this onto VCO as well. I'm pretty sure they're the only ones that can access that. Let's just have a quick look. I'm pretty sure. Sorry about this. Yeah, I think so. But each one of these engines, they do require quite a bit of investigation, because there's a lot of flexibility within each one, and using that little randomized parameters on the page, that's the engine page, is definitely an interesting way of learning a little bit about what that engine can do. I go to the noise gen, for instance. Let's just have a little play with that. That sounds good. But if I just hold that, yes. Wow. It's instant, isn't it? That's a satisfying randomizer, I guess, because you are narrowing which parts of the engine that you're randomizing. It just gives it a little bit more control. Okay, take a little bit of tack off that, but yeah, that's a great little shaker, that is, isn't it? Yeah, happy with that. So that sounded cool. Yeah, so this is in the kit. This is my default kit. So I've got myself a little shaker here. I can save this kit, and if I save this kit, I can associate this kit with any pattern. And this is something that is a bit confusing at first. You'll experience this with the Analog 4 as well. That a kit, a pattern and a kit, they're kind of separate things. you can associate that kit with that particular pattern. But if and then if you use that kit in different patterns, then if you change the settings of the kit, then that will then sound different. Those changes will be reflected in that pattern when it's in that kit when it's played by a different pattern. I could probably say that a lot better. But it's the fact, and you can save patterns and you can save kits. So I think this is something that gets a bit confusing. But it is kind of cool because you can make really cool kits, save that kit, and then you can make a variation of that kit, save that variation kit, and then choose when you make a pattern which of the kits you want to use. I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. It allows for pretty much any kind of flexibility in that area, rather than typically those things are kind of bonded together, the pattern and the sounds. Yeah, I wish. That's a good idea. Hope everyone's well. It's nice to see a big bunch of you out there tuning in live. Really, really cool. Makes me very happy to see that happen. Yeah, so if you are just tuning in, I am going through the Elektron Rytm MK2. I'm putting forward a case for it being the best drum machine ever made, or possibly. I'm not sure. It's open to debate for sure, but I think these cases that I'm putting forward are difficult to match in other machines, or some machines will have some of them, other ones won't have. It's the fact this has got so many of those things going on. And again, just to say that I'm talking about this as a drum machine, and I'm separating that from a groove box or a workstation type of thing, like an MPC. It's not comparable. There is absolutely an overlap, absolutely, but but if we were to compare this, for instance, to the Roland TR-808 as an example, which is best, really this kind of smokes the 808, really, because although the 808 is lovely and can just give you that thing straight away, you can do that on this and a whole heap more, And whether you can get it exactly the same, you can get it certainly close. You can get the emotional value that you would get from an 808 out of this thing. I'm utterly convinced about. But I mean, the 808 just being one potential contender against the, against this. The Roland TR-8S on Sonic State earlier today, and we were talking briefly about this, and Nick said the TR-8S could be the best drum machine ever made, and that is an excellent drum machine. Significantly, it's like a third of the price, I think. The price of this is its worst feature. It is expensive, but I don't think it's needlessly expensive. It is a very high quality piece of kit. So, I don't think it's fair to maybe attack the price of this. Because I think many of the things that I'm talking about in this, to do like build quality, etc., come at a cost, Anyway, so I'm setting up. Right. I've got 4 synths along here. Well, 3 technically, but we can still create different sequences on each of the pads there, and they can interact in different ways. So if you use the mute to bring them in, switch them in and out, they can react kind of interestingly. But what's pretty cool about this is it is a pretty fat synth, though. Now let's show you on here what is going on. There's a configuration knob here. You don't get an awful lot of control. We can set the tuning, and we can detune. Well, basically, so oscillator 2 right down there, and decays. So So the two oscillators decay can be set independently. There's a balance between the two oscillators. There's that one down there. It's right down there. That's down there.
That's right down there. It's not. It's up here. And we can tune. I'm gonna tune it up. I'm gonna stop this.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so that, and then what else we got? Bend. So we can have a negative bend, the pitch bend there. Can we set the speed of that bend? I'm not sure. Again. But the configuration control, that's where the action is though, because that's how the oscillators are kind of set up to work. And you can get enormous changes across the here. Oh, we can see actually this is showing us what our waveforms are. Two sawtooths. Sawtooth and a triangle. Two sine waves. I think. Oh, these feedback. Bit of FM. So, and then this is for the other oscillator. Oh. So as a synth, there we go. That's our last option there. You know, obviously that parameter can be locked as well, so you could have that sound changing. But you can hear that it's a pretty gnarly. And we could do things with the LFO. We could set the LFO destination. Let's see, can that go to the Can that go to that setting we were just playing with? Yes. Okay, see what happens. We'll turn up the depth of that. Something horrible. I don't think that was ever going to work well. But does introduce us neatly to the fact that the LFO can go to lots and lots of places, which is cool. Oh no, let's turn that out. Whoa. Yes. Okay. Now, for playing melodic parts, 12 notes, well, isn't an awful lot. You can, however, oh, I don't know if you can see this. Can I see the colours of this? So bright there, actually, but not really. Oh, kind of. But you can see, can I turn that? Maybe you can see it on this one. Yeah, kind of. As I step through the octaves, the colours of the pads change. So when they're all blue, it's the kind of, oh, you can see it there, yeah. As you step through it, you can see the colours change as the octaves change. And that's kind of neat, isn't it? There we go. Yeah, you can see that kind of neat there. So that's how you can navigate the octaves. How useful this synth ultimately is. Well, I mean, there is an amp envelope. There is a filter. There's an LFO. You can do quite a lot with it. And I think its raw sound is nice. Yeah, it's mean, isn't it? Let's just filter that down. So, in a way, this is where the rhythm has a little bit of a groove boxy sort of aspect to it, hasn't it, really? Yeah. Okay, some more. Okay. Where's my, yes. I muted that snare earlier, so that's why it wasn't playing back. There we go. And that's another really lovely Elektron thing, is that when you double tap the stop, any notes that haven't completed their release cycle, or, you know, stuck notes or whatever, you see, double tap, stops everything. That's especially useful on the Octatrack, on the sampler by Elektron, because those samples, you know, can go on a long time. So stops everything dead. Very nice little feature again. Okay, sorry, that was an awful synth piece of music there, but you can hear the synth has got a lot of girth. It's got a lot of analog goodness, but trying to play melodic parts in and doing things with this is not really what it's best designed for. You can do it, and there's a lot of stuff clearly that you could do with that, but it is going more into the groove box realm. As of 1.6 though, step sequencing has been implemented, and everyone's going, it's always been able to do step sequencing, surely, but what it means is you can now enter a kind of step sequence. Every time you hit a sound, it'll advance the sequence on, so you can sort of add everything in that way. I can't remember how you put in rests, but there is a way of doing that too. So example, let's clear up what's going on here. Oops. Okay, so in a most, I'm just going to step sequence those there. Record and stop puts us into the mode. One is lit up green, and that's kind of indicating that we're now in the kind of step mode. So I can go. So I just step them in, and this record mode has a slightly different visual look now, because there's 3 different stages of, that it could be in. If it's flashing like so, then it's in real-time record. So I could, yeah. If it's lit solid, now let's get that tom track. If it's lit solid, then this is where we're in, you know, which is another way of step sequencing. The TR Zox box way of sampling, sequencing. Yeah. And now this third motion now, so I hit record and stop, and now we can see it's kind of flickering now. When it's flickering, that means we're in our step advance. And it's on beat 1, but I could add some more things on here now. So other drum machines have done that. that's just a different way of doing stuff. It's really nice that it's on here, and I've actually found it's a lot of fun, and you kind of go, oh, that should have been there from the start. That is brilliant. But the fact it's here now is really cool. Now, something that I really thought should have been from the start has also been implemented in the 1.6, and that is trig previews. Now, that, especially if you're getting into really manipulating the sounds, is super useful. What it essentially means is, if we go and find, let's go find a pattern with lots of stuff going on. Okay. And then let's find a track with lots of steps on. Okay. I might need to make something to demonstrate this, but basically when you hold the step and hit yes, you can hear exactly what that step is doing. So if, for instance, okay, we can hear that, I think this tempo is too fast. It's tripping over itself, isn't it? Yes. Okay. That's a horrible pattern. These are not my patterns. Let's find another one. Lots of samples in that pattern. That's like a reggae thing. This, I guess, is showing it more as in a groove box way here, using some samples. Why is that playing in a sequence? No. I think I know what I did. I triggered it. Direct jump. There, that hanging note there, that's a good example where that double tap of stop. Okay, actually, I'm going to mute. I'm going to work with that snare. It's easy to do. So let's, on this, let's just shorten this pattern so it's just one bar long as well. There we go. This will be easier to, quicker to see what's going on. Okay, so I can hold this down and let's add some reverb onto just that step. Yeah, okay. So this is the trig preview thing now, you know. So if you hold your step, you can hear that step is dry. You can hear that step has got reverb on. So if you're really getting into making quite a complex thing, being able to hear exactly what's on each step, I think is great. I thought that should have been there all along with my Analog 4. I just couldn't. I was going, how do you hear what's on a step after you've set all the sounds into it? And I thought it was me. I thought that I couldn't find that I was missing a fundamental way of doing that. But yes, now it's supported. So hallelujah! Really, really cool little function. Again, that's not something that I'm positing for it being the greatest drum machine. The fact that it does all that does contribute, but that's more bringing it in line to certain expectations. I think being able to hear what's on all your steps. Yeah. Oh yeah. So you can hear there that loud kick, quieter kick then, and that number 8 just a soft kick. So yeah. So there we go. Alrighty. So number 8. Oh, how we do for time? Oh my God, time! I am waffling. This is a record waffle. And I'm on number 8. Okay, I'll speed up. Here. Okie dokie. Right. Number 8 is the sampling capabilities. Because although not perfect, there are lots of good things to be said about the sampling. And I thought I'd do a little interesting thing. I'm going to sample some acoustic guitar. But what we're going to try and do is get some sort of percussion sounds out of the acoustic. And I'm going to do this with the little Boss, this little Boss preamp here. And yes, okay. This Boss has got a nice little feature, and we're going to take advantage of it. It's got a thing called acoustic resonance. And what that acoustic resonance does is it's got, I think, 3 different types of algorithm, but you can add an acoustic. Well, it seems to add an acoustic space around something. With a guitar like this, with the pickup is in the bridge here, and has certain characteristics of the guitar, but doesn't have the acoustic resonance. So it's trying to put that bit in. So I think actually for hitting it, varying the acoustic resonance could be quite an interesting way of getting samples. I'll just make sure we're working. We're hearing this through my mic at the moment. Let's just get it coming in. So I'm going to go into my sampler. I think this little view will work. Yeah, great. Okay. Now I can set the source of where the sound is coming from. Hang on. Guitar in. I'm sure this should be coming up on here. This is annoying. This worked before. I'm not sure why that's not coming through. Maybe the cable has started. Maybe the cable. Maybe it doesn't like this cable. Okay, I have to find a different cable. Let's just take that out for now. Sorry about that. Cables, they are unpredictable. Hang on. I will try this cable just going directly in, not using this Boss for now, just to make sure we've got sound. Oh, that looked all right. Let's see, it must be the cable. Yeah. Nothing. Okay, that cable must be kaput. Let's give you a nice look at this drum machine. I'm curious to wonder whether you like the new livery. Not this one. This is the original colour in the grey, and the new one is black. And I think it looks great in black. But I really like this grey. I think it's very appealing to me. But I know that some people really didn't like this colour scheme. So I'm wondering whether Elektron making them in black is capitulating to that, or whether it's just cool it's been out for a couple of years. Well, like this doing now. It gets a bit more attention. But yeah, what was super cool was Elektron made an update for all of the analog range. So the analog keys, the analog 4, the analog 4 Mark II, the Rytm Mark I and the Rytm Mark II, they all received significant updates, which was super cool, especially in the case of the Analog 4 Mark 1, which is about 8 years old now as a product. So I think that long in its life, it receiving really significant updates is highly commendable. I think that's superb that Elektron have done that. I need to get a lead that works. That's annoying. I don't know why a lead would just decide to die. I'm just going to make sure that it was the lead. I can't believe it isn't, that it was the lead. Oh, God. Bear with me, folks. Sorry about this. It is the lead. Okay. Let's just get that there. Do you know what? It's not working. I don't know. Guitar is new. Maybe that's not working. It's not working. I mean, it's not even registering on the pedal, so I think the output of the guitar may be something up. Ah, what a shame. What a shame. Okay, let's think on my feet. I'm going to plug something else in. I know what I'm going to plug in. Do you know, I'm thinking what may be wrong. When this guitar came, the battery was flat. And I'd bought some batteries from the dear departed Maplin. Now, for those of you not in Britain, Maplin was an institution of a sort, really. It was a shop that was around since the mid-70s and, well, for many years was the specialist shop for for people into electronics, electronics, really, yeah. And they would sell all the components. You could get all the bits and bobs from Maplin's. Over the years, it started to sell more kind of cheap Chinese kind of novelty stuff, which I think was sad in a way because Maplin sort of changed. Although at the back of a Maplin's shop, there was always a desk there that you could go and order. You know, you could get cable cut to length and all sorts of stuff. And it was a part of British life for a very long time. It went out of business maybe not that long ago, 3 years ago, perhaps. And people were like, oh well, Maplin's gone out of business. But it's like, really, where can you go just to go and get something there and then? Components. You sort of realised that it was fulfilling a really important role. Yeah, but it did transfer. Mentioning Radio Shack and in Britain we had Radio Shack Tandy. The stores were called Tandy. Tandy's been gone a long old time now. 30, well, yeah, getting on for 30 years, maybe 25 years. Tandy's been gone. Is Radio Shack still in business in the States, or has it gone? Yeah. They were similar. Maplin was a bit more specialist, actually, than Tandy. But there was in fact, Maplin's later days, it became more like a Tandy, I suppose. But anyway, it's just the times, I guess. But yeah, I miss it, really. I don't know if there's any sharp-eyed viewers noticed Maplin's audio cables there. I've gone to throw them out loads of times, but they just keep working. Yeah. Right. Man, I don't know what's going on with this guitar. I think it's something to do with the battery. So I'm going to swap out that for something else. Got another guitar. Now, I know that this guitar has got a hell of a buzz on it, but we're sampling, so maybe that buzz is just... Oh. That wasn't as disastrous as it sounded. Great. Let's put that there for now. Yes. Why am I talking about Maplins? Because when Maplins was closing down on the very last day, or one of the very last days, I bought a bunch of lithium 9-volt batteries, thinking, oh, you know, they're normally quite expensive. But when I brought it back, it said on them then smoke machine batteries. I hadn't noticed that, something. I all thought that it was okay. But then I went to use them, and they're like a little bit too big. I think they've designed them to stop people nicking them out of smoke machines for good reason. I think there's a damn fine reason for this. But then I couldn't get it into anything, fit into it. It's too big, like a little bit too big. Yeah, so there I was trying to exploit Maplin in its dying days by exploiting it by buying some lithium batteries cheaply, only for it to bite me on the bum. Anyway, let's see what's going on here. Guitar. We can do a similar process. That was intending just a different guitar. Okay, this is working. It was the guitar. Right. So let's have a little look at this acoustic resonance, just because. Right. I'm going to bring my vocal out for a moment, just so what we're hearing is just the pure guitar sound. Okay, so the only thing we're going to hear now is the guitar. This is just, everything is switched off. So this is just the sound of the piezo. I'm just doing this just to show you what that acoustic resonance control does, because I've been quite interested in it. Okay, I'm going to take my mic out for now. Oh, yeah, what I'm going to do when you see me reach over is I'm going to switch in the acoustic resonance. I'll play around with it. There's three different ones. There's one which is, I think is natural. Then there's one which is like warm, and then there's one that's bright. So there's the three different ones there. So what you'll see me do really is just go through them. I'll just play a chord. I should just quickly tune up. Talk amongst yourselves. Take my mic out a moment. Moving on to the warm. Yeah, you see that starting sounding quite nice from an acoustic. That's definitely got a more of an acoustic sound. I mean, you're hearing that through the mic a bit there. Again, there's limits to the technology, but it definitely improves things. Anyway, but we're going to use this to sample some drum sounds, and I want that resonance to just kind of give us a bit more acoustic. So I'm just going to hit. I'm just going to see what sort of knocks
Again, what you're hearing is coming from my mic. This is what it sounds like without my mic. I don't know how much of that actually is coming through, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to sample. So I'll just, well, there's a few ways I could sample. I could sample via, well, I can choose where I'm sampling. It is mono. It is mono. So the samples will, even though it looks like you're recording it in stereo because it's got a left and right input, it will be a mono sample. Again, this is kind of using it for making beats and making hits, and then all the stereo control can happen downstream of the actual sample itself. And we can put panning and modulate the panning and various things. So if you want lots of stereo activity on your sample after the fact, then it's absolutely available. But anyway, I can set a threshold, and then the threshold will give me a chance to when I go to record, only things over the threshold will start it recording. Yes, that's great. That's what we want. Again, really like a mixture of this microphone and the PA, so but anyway, but this is kind of, we're just going to show that a little bit about how the sample engine works on here anyway. This is an epically long session. I'm so glad everyone is there enjoying, hopefully enjoying it. Right then, let's do it. So I'm going to hit yes to start the recording process. Okay, so it's waiting for triggers. Okay, so that'll do for now. I can hear that noise. Let's get rid of that for now. And now on the screen, we can see the sample. And what we can do is we can just go through here and make a take out various samples from it. So I'm just going to put this guitar down. Right then. So on the screen, we can see there's a top part of the screen and bottom part of the screen. The top part is the zoomed in section. The bottom part is like an overview. So the top part allows you to dial in, and we can trim. Oops. So if I press down, you can see that black selection. And when I'm not pressing down, then I'm fine tuning it. So we'd find, well, we've got one at the start anyway. So let's have a listen to what we've got. Yeah, so I think that first thing, let me just make sure that I've got, okay. I don't think they're going to sound particularly impressive, but you can work with them, and that's the great thing with sampling, isn't it? So I'll move that start position here, and then you can sort of see when I move it. Oh, here we go. You can be very precise. And then this little window now shows us the end of the sample. So as I dial out
the out of it. Let's just bring it in tighter. There we go. And then I can pull that out. Don't know if this is making much sense, but effectively we can adjust. That's the in point, and then here we've got like the out point. So it's so you can set precisely the in point and the out point. And I do believe that if you hold down the function, oh, maybe it doesn't. I thought holding down function would lock it to 0 crossings, but it does that on the Octatrack. And then yes to trim. So you can trim that hit. Yes to save. And I can just, here's a tip. This seems like a pain in the bum, but once you've set it up once, it's not so bad to have to write in the name of a sample. But if we're creating samples, it pays to name it well. But if you go function clear, or clear the name, and like if I was just gonna then type in the name, and I'll just say guitar. Oops. No, I like this little pop-up typing bit here. If I'm going to call this guitar one, some people do, some people don't. But what I'm also going to do, actually, no, I'll take guitar. I'll take guitar. Just call it guitar. This is the tip: is if you go function copy in this window, it'll copy that. So guitar is now. Just the name of it is there's a clipboard essentially that exists just purely for the name, and now guitar is in that clipboard. So then once you've done that, the next thing it's asking you is which pad do you want that sample to go to. So I hit the pad, and now that sample, if I turn off the kick, at the moment it's playing a sample and a kick. Let's just turn off the synth part, and there's our sample, which isn't a great sample, but we could do things with it. It's got some bottom end in it. Okay. So that's the process, and then you would just repeat it. You can jump back to the sample, and the sample will stay there. The sample will stay there until you, either turn the drum machine off, or you want to sample something else in. So it allows you to put a bunch of sounds in, like I did here, and then search through it for interesting sounds. I did realise as well as I was doing this that I do think it is better to work with shorter samples. I think the way that this editor works, which I think is really good, it's just a bit easier when you're working with, so just sample about 5 seconds or 10 seconds worth. I think I did 30 seconds or something. But anyway, yeah, you follow on the process, you get that, you get the sound working, save it to the pad. I'm not particularly au fait at that, so I'm being quite clunky. However, I think what is good is the fact that you do get this graphic editor, and you are able to, as I say, dial in the starts and to dial in the endings. In fact, I'm not doing it very well, but yeah. And that sampler, yes, it there's no time stretch in there. There's not a lot of kind of fun sample stuff. It's not like, if we were to go into the sample editor, In fact, actually, let's just do that. Let's go back to our sample and let's put this whole long sample. Actually, I'm just going to trim off the front of it and I'll trim off the end of it there. So I'll just have a little section of it like that, but lots of beats. Yes, that's my function yes to preview. Yeah, so I think actually I would want to just trim that front a little bit tighter. Let's just do that. And like that. Oh, do you know what I just did? I just said function no, which wipes the sample. But I fear not, because I think loaded in here is that same sample. I think, oh no, I didn't. I just trimmed it, didn't I? Okay, officially egg face now. That was, I messed up. I lost my sample. So black marks there. But I think I've not done an awful lot of it. I really haven't. It's something that I really need to investigate a lot more. The reason why I haven't done a lot of that is I typically use this with just the analog synth engine. I find it just brilliant, and I'm not particularly looking to sample things. However, I did sample the other day. Let's just load in a new project, and I sampled, let's find it, Thwomp. Let me see, my kit. All these samples are taken from, this thing. Actually, I wasn't going to do acoustic guitar. I was going to use this, but the battery was flat. So, yeah. So here's one I prepared earlier. Just taking in the samples, hitting it. What this is Leaf Audio. It's a sound. It's called a sound box. I've made a video on my channel if you do want to check it out, because I think it's a lot of fun. It's got a really interesting preamp in it. It's really sensitive and very clean, surprisingly clean. So doing certain things, springs, you can bow these bars as well. I do all of that in a little video. But it's a great sample source. So these sounds, oh, it's got a heck of a lot of reverb on there. They're all derived from, or rather just sampled from that. Yeah. Which, it's just great. Sampling is a lot of fun. And yes, that's cool. Anyway, I meant to be going through my top 10 and that was very, very long-winded. Right. Okay. So that was number 8. Oh yeah. So number 9, I think I covered number 9 in the sequencer. I had number 9 down as all of the pattern chaining and the full song mode, which I do think actually does warrant having its own entry, because a lot of drum machines don't actually have a song mode, or they don't have the chain mode, or they have one or the other. That you can create a bunch of, that you can chain a bunch of patterns together, and sometimes the song mode is just that, is just the way that you can just go that pattern followed by that pattern followed by that pattern. But the song mode, as I was talking about it earlier, allows you to just do a lot more sequency things and just choose how many times round it goes before it moves to the next one, and what's playing, what's not playing. I'm covering what I've already talked about. But yeah, I had that down as number 9. And I'm really ashamed now because I haven't actually got a number 10. I thought I was going to do 10, and and arguably haven't even got number 9. So I'm going to say the top 9 things instead of top 10 that makes this the best drum machine ever made. Now, I also think that it is there are some flaws in it, as there probably is with every single drum machine. For me, the flaws, well, they're very minor. There are a few things that are an Elektron-wide thing. I mentioned earlier about the cerebral nature of it, and that sometimes can be a bit daunting because, you know, you to really get the most out of it, you have to commit and really dig in deep. And it's brilliant when you are connected with it. It's fantastic. It's a positive and it's a negative. It's a negative in as much as sometimes you look at it and you just go, whew. And something, you know, like the 808 or which just is it much more there it is, and you're not so confused about stuff. It is easy to do things, and I've gone wrong a little bit tonight at various points as well. It is easy to do that. However, the more focused you are in on it, you don't tend to make those kind of mistakes so much. You do kind of find the workflow, and it really is very, very rewarding indeed. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it really actually does sound very good as well. I'm just going to go back to the original. I'm going to go back to the demo project here, presets. Yeah. And I'll just finish off with just a few preset patterns. I've got a bunch of stuff on the go at the moment, but I want to keep that to myself. See, it's got the punch, it's got the tone. Just sounds lush, I think. Won't change. I like drum machines that sound like electronic drum machines, more so than ones that are trying to emulate real drums, acoustic drums. This is tasty. This is a tasty sounding drum machine. You do have some performability as well. The scenes idea is pretty cool. If a pattern is playing and you decide to kind of go into scenes mode, I go to scene 5 here. I can choose a drum, say the kick. I don't know if I can be bothered to fully explore this, but basically any parameter changes you can make specifically if you're in the actually look, if we see on the screen here, let's go here. Yeah, when I'm pushing this pad, this scene, you can see the ones that are lit up, those parameters change and when I let it go, you can see them. I can't hear that particularly. Oh, there we go. You can hear that. But that's a very powerful feature, and it's got next door to it a button called Perf. And going into Perf, it's very similar, but what that does is that the pad itself becomes a performable thing. Yeah, this one is cool. The harder I press, the more reverb it's on there. Look, as I release the pressure, I add in a reverb, as I add more pressure onto it. So, performability. I love, like I was showing you earlier, being able to just change patterns effortlessly, and any tails overhang beautifully. It's not just kind of chopping the edges and just going to the new pattern, things like that. It makes it feel musical. It makes it feel a bit more real, if that makes any sense. The fact that you know that note values are respected, unless you double tap and kill them. But yes, so 9. Oh gosh, I guess 10. That could be 10, couldn't it? The scene and the performance mode, although I only very briefly touched on that. But basically, in the scenes and performance mode, you've got 12 possibilities that you can store specific parameter values on, and there's just 2 different ways of doing it: jumping to a completely different set of parameter values, or using in the performance mode pressure to vary that. The performance mode is probably most similar to the macro performance mode in the Analog 4, where you've got all of the knobs which you can assign to different parameters. It's just using pads rather than encoders. Yeah, so cool. I think I'm going to stop because I've gone on for absolutely ages and ages and ages. It's fantastic to have such a fantastic big audience, and thank you so much for everybody and all of the conversation that's going on. I love reading. I miss most of it, but I love reading the live chat afterwards, after I finished, and really appreciate all of that. And for regulars and new people, and thank you so much. There's lots of new subscribers, which is always exciting. So welcome. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so, because I'm not entirely sure why, but I think you're meant to ask that sort of thing. And click the bell. Click the bell. Oh, I can't be bothered saying all that, but you meant to say all of that. Anyway, so this was me presenting a case for the Elektron. I'd love to read your comments and see what you think, and to see what you think is better than it. I think it's got so many awesome features up its sleeve. Be interesting to see if you think there is anything that is better. And remember, the criteria for this comparison is drum machine as opposed to Groovebox. And I just wanted to reiterate that, because this doesn't do the Groovebox thing. It steps there, but it's the drum machine aspect of it. Yeah. Oh, Wagyu, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Those are brilliant. Yeah, so Wagyu has just written up those. I need to probably I'll grab them and put them in the notes. Thanks again, everybody, then, for tuning in. I'm Gaz Williams, and there will be guests coming. I know the last few weeks have been sort of more gear focused. Oh, gosh, I almost forgot. Big news in my modular rig. So that's completely changed now. So my modular show, I'm hopefully going to launch it on Monday at 10:30 UK time, Monday evening. So it can be like a late night thing. What I'm going to do there is I'm going to really just really look at my little rig and explain what's going on, and it's going to be very much focused about the modular Eurorack rig, and see how it goes, and see if that's something that you think is could be an interesting thing. It's a Voyager discovery for me, so I'd like to chronicle that really, and to share that adventure. So Monday, I'm going to try that now and see how we go. There's not really new modules, but there is a new rack. I've now got my racks and it's exciting. Yes, I will talk more about that on Monday. So if you are interested, please join me for that, because that will be quite fun. And I'm really excited to show you all what's going on in that sense. Anyway, so I'm going to sign out. Thank you ever so much, everyone. And take care. Peace and love, everyone. Bye-bye.